So I'm still not quite sure where I come down on this subject of AI. Um, Again, being in my 50s and 53 at this point, um, you don't want it to pass you by, but you're also not sure if it's something you really have an interest in, right? I think of AI and I'm thinking Arnold and the Terminator movies, right? That's kind of AI, the machines, right? Machine learning. Will that happen? Probably not. At least not in my lifetime, I would think. But there's a lot of different sides you can come down on this subject, I guess. And I guess you talk about machine learning, and my understanding was when it first came out, I guess it's been probably being used for the last 2 years now on a regular basis with a lot of people. My first thought was, well, you've got a machine doing the work for you. You're going to just type in something, and then it's going to spit everything out, and then you're done, like writing a book report, something along those lines where you're not putting the effort in. Don't think that's really the case right now, but that's kind of where my mind was. And I think because I guess I loosely have, can associate myself as a content creator, right? In the loosest possible sense of the term. I've got this. I've got my guitar channel, my music channel. I've got my truck channel. All the stuff's in the link if you want to check it out at any time. But at some point, you see how people are using AI for their content creation. Maybe not so much for doing it for them, but for some assistance. And that's kind of where I am with this right now. I look at it this way. I look at the way my father viewed music. Okay, he and I had this conversation quite a while ago. He passed a few years ago, but music was his love, his first love. I don't want to say his only love, but when it came to things that he enjoyed doing, music was a big thing for him. Born in 1942, so like when he was, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, it's kind of when rock and roll first began. Bill Haley in the comments, I think was 1953. So he grew up with the beginning of rock and roll, so that was kind of his thing, and then got into the doo wop. Well, I guess the 50s, 50s into the 60s was kind of like that doo wop piece of it, and then 60s was the Motown sound, and into the 70s. And at one point we had this conversation, because he drew a line in the sand where it's like his music is what he liked, and he wasn't going past a certain point because he just didn't want to. It was too much. That line was sometime in the 70s because we had talked about this, and he said, Rich. Once that heavy metal came out, he referred to Led Zeppelin, right? To Zeppelin on that. He goes, I just didn't have an interest and I stopped. I can respect that, right? Because I'm kind of the same way with my music now. I get to a certain point and I like my music, and there's some stuff out there I like, but it's not really what I'm into. A couple bands, but nothing major. I'm more into the independent artists right now. There's a whole bunch of them that come across my feed on Facebook because I hit something, but it's some great music out there. But he drew the line in the sand around that time. He branched out once in a while, as an example. If you remember the movie Real Genius, I think Val Kilmer was in it. And at the very end of that movie, over the credits, rolled the Tears for Fears song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I think it was the first time he ever heard that song. But when he heard it, it just clicked. That was like, whoa, this is something great. So think of it this way, 85 when that music came out, or that song came out. So somewhere around that time, it's on HBO. That's when, back when HBO, you had the cable boxes back then. And, if the movie had come on or you knew it was going to be coming on at some point through the TV guide, he put the movie on and he would just sit there and wait for the credits to roll because he loved that song so much. Nowadays you stream it, you can just kind of, within 10 seconds you've got it on TV, phone, whatever you want. But that was the one exception to the rule. And it's like, what Yogi Berra said, the catcher for the Yankees. You come to a fork in the road and you take it. You got to take one of them, right? And I could take that fork in the road. It was like, nope, done. I'm not doing AI. Or I can go down that road of AI and start learning. And I've been doing that. It's interesting. Now, there's ChatGPT, there's Gemini, there's Microsoft Copilot. I know there's a couple other ones out there, right? So it already becomes overwhelming. But because I'm a Google guy, it's just the way it is. I got Gmail, the YouTube stuff. I use Drive for a lot of my documents. So definitely, I've got an Android phone, Pixel phone now, Android phones, and, the Samsung phone. So I was never an Apple person, just never was. So Google's been my go-to, so I started using Gemini. And it's interesting. There's a lot to learn. And I told you, I already thought that, Google or AI was going to be like just, you say something, type it in, and it's going to spit something out for you. And in a way it does. But my experience with AI, I'm not telling you how to do AI. I'm just kind of walking you through what I've been doing with it right now and how I'm using it. You're actually having a conversation with that product, which is really creepy at times. I do it in the car. Like my part-time job. I'm a delivery driver local here in town. So when I've got time or on the road for longer periods of time, 15 minutes this way, 15 minutes that way, I'll start using hands-free, basically, Gemini in the car. And I used it really, I mean, the first time I really used it was, when I wanted to kick off this Flip Side with Richie Flip channel and my podcast. And I would just say, hey, Google, and I would ask it, or not ask a question, here's what I want to do. And it comes back with a conversation. It's like, this thing's actually having a conversation with me. And I just answer it back, hey, okay. And you start having this back and forth, but it really, I understand the learning piece of it now, where it's pulling, instead of just doing a Google search and pulling out some information, it's pulling all these different things and actually in real time, like a matter of a couple seconds. So I've been using it for that, which is very, very interesting. I've also started using it for thumbnails for YouTube. And I find this to be very cool, yet I'm very sensitive about how I go about doing it. Perfect example. I've got this photo here. I did a, if you see that picture, it's me and Eddie Van Halen. Okay, if you can see that. And I put out a video on the flip side here about how I met Eddie Van Halen. So I took this photo, and now you might say that's a weird looking photo. This has to be, well, I know it's from it's the Kodak disc camera. Remember those where the actual film was on a disc, right? And you popped it in, very thin camera. That's what this was taken on. So I said, hey Google, I'm trying to be careful. I have nothing on because I don't want Google doing something in the room here. Clean this photo up, right? And this is where AI just sucks, okay? It cleaned it up. Number one, it took Eddie Van Halen and it changed him to like a different way he looked. It was him, but it changed this up, and then me was like completely different person. So in order, I guess Google thought, hey, I'm going to clean this up. Let's get rid of Richie. Thank you. So that's where I'm, and you got to say, no. And you start having this conversation and, line by line, note, take this out, do this, do that. So you have to be very careful with how you're doing it. I don't want it to create things where now it's a copyright issue. So I'm kind of taking my own stuff and I'm asking it to clean it up or put some font on it for the thumbnail. So I'm still trying to figure all of this out, right? And what works best and how to do it. It's fun. It's interesting. But it's just, there's a lot to unpack here. So I want to keep using it. I'm not going to stop using it, but I want to keep using it just to understand it better. I don't want to start going down these different paths. Okay, we'll try this product or that platform and do this. I kind of like Gemini. I'd rather just keep it that way and just learn from that. But, I can definitely see the benefits of it. Now, I've seen people talk about how they have written books using AI. I don't know how that works. Look, if you follow me, I wrote a book not too long ago, or at least published it not too long ago. I can't see myself publishing something where I just kind of fill out a few lines on something and then you've got a 150-page book like that. That's really odd to me. I don't know if I would even be proud of something like that personally, knowing how much time I put into the other book. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, just personal preference. But maybe if I look further into this, and I know AI will help you organize your thoughts and put things together. That's cool because I'm very unorganized at times. I can see myself using it for that. So I don't know. I'm at the very, very beginning stages here of using AI. I want to keep using it. I want to learn more about it. And I need to figure out how do I kind of just incorporate it into what I'm doing. Again, to organize. Here's an example. I even asked it 2 days ago as I was doing my job in the car. I go, hey, I've got the podcast, I've got this channel and some other things. I go, is it looked down upon if you make content and then put it in other places? Is that kind of like a way of cheating? And it comes back, no. I mean, a lot of creators are doing things for different platforms, different things, and different people are out there, so they actually encourage it. Like, okay, so I'll start doing that. And it makes sense. I can do one video like we're doing here, and I can put it on the podcast. I can put it, in this channel. So we'll see how this goes. It's all brand new. I get to a certain point on things where if I get confused or lost or frustrated, I shut down and I don't ever want to work on it again. I can see myself getting to that point with AI, but I don't want to. I want to just kind of keep working on this. That's kind of where I am right now. I've started it. I've been working on it. It's interesting, especially for you. Like for me, I think the best part of it's the hands-free piece of it as I'm in the car and I'm just asking it questions as I'm, kind of doing what I need to do. Which I find, and even it knows I'm driving strange. Like, hey, you're on the road. Did you want to do this or go over there? As you if you're asking about this, no, we're good, thank you. Like I feel bad. Like I feel like I'm insulting it at times. Hey, can I help you out with this? Did you want to find out? Like I was asking it something about putting either making my own French fries from scratch with potatoes, or finding the frozen ones in the grocery store. And it answers me and goes, hey, by the way, if you are in the mood for this, do you want us to map out something on your local way home? No, please don't. And I feel bad saying no. Like, and I say thank you to a machine. But that's where I am with this whole AI thing. So it's interesting. I'm going to see how this plays out. Um, and I'll keep you updated. Again, 50 something. I don't know how many of us are using AI. I know the kids are using it. But it's like I sometimes think of AI as like, when you were in math class back in high school and you brought the calculator with you because you couldn't do multiplication. It wasn't quite doing you any justice, almost like cheating, right? Especially if you weren't allowed to bring in a calculator. So sometimes I see AI as cheating, but as you kind of break it down and look at it from different perspectives and how you do it, it's good for brainstorming. It's good for organization. And I think that's kind of what I want to concentrate more on as far as organizing. Like today on Sunday, Father's Day, right? I'm still doing what I got to do, but I'm trying to get more organized and do it in batches and not piecemeal, basically. So we're going to see how this goes. I'll catch up with you again at some point and see how this is going with the AI. I'm not totally against it right now. I'm just learning more and more about it, but we'll see how it goes. It's fun and it's interesting to find out what you can do with it, but I'm still nowhere near at the level other people are as far as how they use it, day to day and work. So we'll see. Just want to give you my 2 cents. Let me know if you're using AI. I'm really curious if you are using it and how you're using it and what you're using it for and what your experience has been, especially if you're around my age. Have you been accepting of it? Have you been just like, nope, done, I'm not doing this? So curious. Let me know. That's all I got for this one. I'm gonna go play with Gemini now. We'll see what happens. Later.